Hello and welcome to Thoughts on Talks. It is December 14th, 2020, and we are here to talk about the Sunday service, which was yesterday, December 13th, 2020. And the topic was the monthly theme is celebrating divine truth. And then there's preparing the way. That's what it is. I'm trying to look at notes that I haven't really looked at before. Preparing the way. And last week was about the shadow, right? Working with shadow and light. That's why we have our Rev lurking in the shadows today.
Yeah.
So, and then also last week we had one of our Black Lives Matter conversations with Salam and my friend Dr. Scott Bowman. And that was our 1-year anniversary show.
And that was a good show. So if you didn't see it, maybe you should go check out that show because we don't know if this one's going to be any good yet or not.
We never know. We're just trusting spirit to work through us and guide us. So that's what we're here doing. And, the middle of December. What'd you say?
I feel like I should keep the glasses off because of the glare.
Okay, you can put them on if you need to look at something. But if you start squinting, I'll tell you to put them back on. Not like that. You never do that normally.
See ya.
Terrible. Don't do that. Stop it right now.
Look like Alec Baldwin.
Sure. He does make those faces.
Could be, maybe. Anyway.
So, is that all part of preparing the way? Starting with faces, good faces.
And trying to find some good comedy.
Yes. I think levity is light. It's bringing light. It's lightening up.
Especially these days.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, this time of year is always extra busy, no matter where you are in your spiritual path or what path you follow. It's the end of the year. There are things in business that need to be taken care of, but there's also family gatherings normally. Now we have to get creative about the family gatherings. And I know from working at a church for 5 years, Christmas was it tripled my workload at least for that month and did not triple my fun.
Right.
I was, I had to work a little harder to eke out the fun and to remember the spirituality. So I'm really enjoying not being fully immersed in that this year. Once again.
Yeah. It's the happiest person that it's Christmas Day is the minister in many spiritual communities.
Because then you get to go,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's fun and it's great. And, you love doing it. And, you get to participate with people and doing all of particularly in our community where we try to cover all of the ecclesiastical and paganistic bases.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to do and it's a lot of fun. But, as the minister, you're the one person who has to be at all of it.
Yeah. So
for everyone else, it's optional.
It's a lot to do, a lot of fun, and it's a lot. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I know
we can't do it this year, I'm really looking forward to doing it next year. There's a lot of things that I've taken for granted.
Yeah.
In the past. Yeah.
Such as, do you want to share any of that?
Just being able to hang out with somebody.
Yeah.
In my office. Without ask, and to see them and to shake their hand, if not give them a hug.
And just the ease of it. Now even if you're going to meet with somebody, you have to, I find myself thinking of all the things that I need to make sure are in place.
Right.
And, you know, is it safe to meet them in this space? Maybe, oh, we can't just do that. Okay, how about this? You know, there's a lot of
Yeah. It's
extra thought.
beginning to be a saran wrap Christmas.
Hazmat suits for everybody.
Hazmat suits for all.
So that's
Yeah.
preparing something, preparing the way. But really, this time at its most spiritual is about turning within and finding that light within, and then sharing it however you can, I think is really the point. And with the winter solstice, that's sort of what happens. It's the darkest day of the year, at least in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Shortest day, longest night, and it's marks when the sun is about to start coming back a little bit more.
Right.
And we would normally celebrate that at our center as the spiral of light ceremony,
Yeah, I know.
which
Yeah,
I'm going to miss.
Rosalie and Chloe and Alex and the Sangha helps out with that too, of course. But
Wow.
it's a beautiful labyrinth very simple labyrinth meditation. But
And it's just so sweet. I mean, you enter in darkness. The room is set before anybody arrives, and it's set by this community of volunteers who make a spiral out of pine boughs, I guess they are. And some seashells and some paper stars that are reflective. Yeah. And what else?
Crystals.
Right. Yep. So it's all very nature based.
Correct.
And then each person comes into a darkened room, almost completely black. Like you have to have just the slightest light on to find the seats that are just around the edges of the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And then after a lovely introduction that recalls the spiral of life, the connection to nature, to the stars, the patterns in nature that are part of us, then we each get a candle, which is usually in an apple, and light the candle, walk the path meditatively. And actually, we light it at the center, right? We get a dark candle and then walk back through and find a place to put the light. So I was trying to think of a way to do it on video that we could share it. And it's not so easy. You would have to have really trained camera people so you didn't make people dizzy. Right. It would have to be on like a gimbal so that it was a smooth motion and not somebody walking through.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. Plus, well, you couldn't do it on Zoom. But
no, because you'd miss too much.
Like, remember one year when we had a large youth group at the time, and they invited their friends, and we had boys who were like 6 or 7.
Oh.
And they invited a bunch of their friends. And
so how was that?
Oh, it was awesome because we had a bunch of kids, and we have that wood floor. Well, we had a very smooth wood floor at the time.
Okay.
And the boys started sliding around on it. So then they started running down the hallway and sliding on the floor. And you could just hear them laughing and carrying on. And some of the older folks were like freaking out. Somebody's going to get hurt. And like, leave them be, man.
Well, I think that's because you grew up in a house with 5 boys who would probably be running around like that a lot.
Well, but also, like, have you ever lived in a place that had ice, like for winter?
No.
I mean, that is a gas, man. You get running, you slide, you slide on the ice and all that.
Wow. Well, and
so I was connecting with that
Christmas,
childhood memory, I suppose.
yeah, Christmas really, the part of the magic of it is children and seeing the wonder and the excitement and the joy on their faces. And when there aren't children around, I do feel like, oh, it's missing a little
Right.
something.
Yeah, because, I just know from my mom, who had a bunch of kids, and she always went all out and she baked and so forth. And even as young adults, we when we would get together before everybody moved off in their careers,
Mm-hmm.
Doing geographics, and then we started having grandkids, or she started having grandkids. We started having kids, and so it was a big deal.
Yeah.
But then, we all become adults, and then our kids leave, and then nobody's putting up anything anymore. Right? So the tree goes up, but as far as in my house, we'd put up bells, and we'd do these crepe paper streamers, and we'd braid the green and the red together, and that whole thing, right? So it was a very festive and joyous, almost my mom was English, so maybe it was kind of a Dickens kind of thing, right? So we used to do the tree on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Right. Until we got older, then we insisted on having, I think you were talking about that.
Yeah, my mom was telling a very similar story on the Zoom on Sunday.
Yeah. So I don't think that was, it could have been a payday thing. I doubt it. But it could have been when my dad was of lower rank. I remember
because Christmas Eve, it's cheaper to buy a Christmas tree on one of those lots. They're like, they are priced to move. Come on, people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so I remember one year he came by with those kind of trees that just have levels. Mm-hmm. I think they're like a silver tip pine or silver tip fir, rather.
Right. A different kind of.
There's like, 9 inches between each level. But, it was cool. When you're 6 or 7, it's all magic anyway.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that really may be the path that we need to create. Getting back to the topic of the Sunday talk is to just reconnect with that magic and that inner child, as well as the light. That is part of the lightness. And for people who maybe their childhood wasn't magical and full of light, this is an opportunity to do some healing work there and give themselves a Christmas that maybe they didn't have, or something like that. Yeah, it's a very emotional time of year too, because so much of the society is focused on this Norman Rockwell sort of cultural family togetherness thing, and not everybody has that experience in their lives to participate in. So even under normal circumstances, pre-pandemic, it's an emotional time. Now with the pandemic, it adds a different layer of challenge, but in some ways I find it also lets people off the hook. Like, oh, okay, nobody's getting together this year, so I don't have to feel bad that I'm not doing that, or that I really don't want to do that. Like, it's okay now. I got a pass.
Yeah, well, I got to get my Christmas cards done.
Yeah, see, I gave up on Christmas cards years ago.
Well, I just kind of feel like I got to do something this year.
Oh, and yeah.
People are sending them, when people send them to you, then, you should respond.
Should.
And, but yeah, I don't know. Frankly, I'm at a loss, because I'm sick of sitting in front of the computer.
Yeah.
Right. And now I got to do Christmas shopping in front of the freaking computer. I want to go
You could do it on your phone, at least.
I want to be in the mall. I want to see the Christmas decorations. I want to, get sick of hearing the same old Christmas carol because I've been there for 3 different trips.
Right.
Right. But, there's just something about, I want to be able to, see something. Oh, yeah, that would work, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, geez, is that made in China? Will it get here in time? Is it good quality? Is it a scam? That's the thing with me online. I think everything's a scam.
Oh, yes, that is very different. So you'll end up watching like Christmas movies that take place in malls just so you can go, remember the days.
Speaking of Christmas movies, there is a beautiful Christmas movie out. I think it's called Jingle or
Jingle Jangle. Yes, I'm saving it for like closer to Christmas. I'm very excited about it.
Oh man, it's so good.
Forrest Whitaker, who is
Forrest Whitaker, Felicia Rashad, and it's a story of an inventor. And I was just thinking that. I think it's going to be a new Christmas classic.
And the wonderful thing about it is it's a Black cast.
Yes, that's right. And so
it's set in the Victorian times too.
So for, African American kids who maybe don't get to see themselves, depicted on screen, except for crime dramas, ER, right? Policemen, detectives, firemen,
doctors, Grey's Anatomy.
Doctors, right? But as far, there's no African American kids in The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Of course, technically there's no kids, but
right.
Well, I guess in the Jim Carrey version, but that one doesn't really count anyway.
Yeah, they're the main characters. They're the central characters, not the sidekick or the friend or.
Right, exactly. So anyway, it's a good story, and the songs. I mean, you're a musical theater person, so you like that kind of stuff anyway. First thing, it's like save me from that stuff, right? So it's like in Oklahoma, right? So here's this cowboy, and then somebody asks him a question, and it's like, well, here we go. But the way this music is done, it's really just the whole thing is done really well. So
that's good.
It's going to be a new classic.
I love that.
Better than was it Jingle All the Way, the one with Schwarzenegger. And Sinbad, and they were fighting over a kid's toy or something.
Yeah. What are you clicking? Are you clicking a pen? I hear a clicking noise.
Oh, you can hear that?
Yeah, really loudly.
I apologize.
I thought you were inventing a robot over there after watching Jingle Jangle.
I told you should have went to the other.
Last
week's episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, people don't want to miss out on the pen clicking. Come on.
Anyway, so preparing the way. What the heck did I talk about? Let's see, preparing. Doing like I'm doing, just purging all these old resentful thoughts around Christmas with a friend, and then reminiscing and finding those joyful aspects.
Yeah, I'm looking at your notes on the side here. To prepare for inner and outer peace. And then you have worldwide in parentheses. So then you looked at each of the world religions and talked about how meditation was part of pretty much every world religion, or at least focusing inward to create outer peace as well. Mm-hmm. And that's so important, that creating the space inside, because otherwise it's so easy to get lost in all the doing and all the shoulding. We should, oh, this person sent me a card. I should send them a card back. Oh, this person invited me to a place and brought, there's a lot of, because we want to make sure that we aren't discounting anybody who has remembered us. So we can get lost in the reasoning behind it too. So maybe what would we replace should with? I
choose to.
Yeah, I joyfully respond with
To
a gift of my own.
Through Amazon. The corporate octopus of the global. Oh, no, we're not doing that now.
That's a different show altogether. It has been very handy during the pandemic, though.
It has been. It's it's kind of funny too when you consider. I remember for years hearing, in the investment papers, when is Amazon going to actually turn a profit?
Well, right? They've done it.
They've done it, and they're doing it in spades, and just gobbling up market share at the same time. So there you go.
Yeah.
The creative genius unleashed.
Yeah, I was watching Yuval Harari, who you've mentioned to me for his book Sapiens.
Yes.
And he has spoken on a lot of, I was just looking for things about him on YouTube. And he's spoken at a lot of places about cautioning us about artificial intelligence and online things and giving up too much of our humanness for the convenience. And he said, we need to take back our power as far as using these things as a tool. And he wasn't just talking about online media. He was talking about society in general, that we can use these tools to help us, like in healthcare, but we also have to make sure we protect our privacy. So I was looking at things like consciousness videos. I was in the mood to go searching for that. So I was binging on how to hack our lives in this.
Well, that really is one of the wonderful parts of the internet is, I mean, with a smartphone, I can't tell you how many times a day I get curious about something and I just, look it up on the phone.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of, was the show Quantum Leap that had Dean Stockwell in it, who had the handheld pad that he would.
Yeah.
So, we're beyond that even.
Yeah. You looked like, even during the Sunday talk, you had a thought, and it looked like, and I think you actually said, I can't look it up on my phone right now. You were trying to refer to a concert in the desert. I think you were thinking of Lollapalooza.
Yes, I was trying to. Yeah.
But
so
you said
Christmas Palooza.
There you go. Our fa-la-la-la-la-palooza.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was on the chat on YouTube, you said, one of those festivals out in the desert. And so people were throwing things out. And then Reverend Jessica looked it up and said, okay, here's what I found. Let me see what she put. Lollapalooza was one of them. Burning Man was what I came up with as far as a desert festival. And Coachella, right.
Which was not what I was actually thinking of. Lollapalooza, which is not in Coachella, and I think it's actually back east somewhere, but
it's all over the place now. I looked it up on Wikipedia. It's international. I remember the first one. I was working at K-Rock, which is alternative radio in Los Angeles at the time of the first one. So now it's like everywhere, but it's mostly stadiums. Yeah. Stadium shows. Yeah, so we get, and I think that's the proper use of the tools of the internet and our smartphones, is to look up things when we're curious,
Right.
and not to fall into the patterns that things like the social dilemma are warning us about, which is the dopamine hit.
Dopamine hit. Yeah.
Yeah, of approval and that kind of thing. So we have choices there too. It's
You have
consciousness.
choices, and I think meditation actually can help with that kind of stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it does give us an opportunity to do some mental hygiene.
Yes.
Because I suppose it depends on how you do it. I mean, some people meditate by using their smartphones, by doing a guided meditation or so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
and if that's what folks are doing to get started, that's great. But at some point, I would just encourage people just to turn all that stuff off and just have, starting out with 5 to 10 minutes of just quiet and just following the breath. I mean, we do it every Wednesday night if you're watching and you're curious. Just a basic modified Vipassana technique, which is a Buddhist technique of monitoring the breath, following sensation in the body to calm and with practice, still the mind, and just to observe what's going on within ourselves and cultivate a sense of response so that we can respond to life rather than being reactive to it.
Yes.
So that we become masters of our emotions rather than being enslaved by them.
Yes. And actually, Yuval Harari, he does a 60-day silent Vipassana retreat every year. At least that's what I remember. But he's like doing genius level work and winning prizes all over the world. And
I mean, that book Sapiens is dense, man, and it's not like some huge 12-point thick page, right? I mean, probably 10-point and like magazine thin pages.
Wow.
It's not, anyway. You're getting your money's worth. I mean, when you pick it up, it even feels dense. It's one of those kind of books.
Wow. But yeah, I was doing the modern shortcut of finding stuff about it on YouTube. So there was a cartoon, that's where I started, where they made it like this a cartoon version of Survival. And made it a game show. And then they had a cartoon version of Yuval come on and explain with his Israeli accent, well, it's not exactly like that. He was explaining to a young woman. So I started there, and then I watched interviews with him on different things.
Yeah.
Because, that's how I felt like taking it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, particularly if you don't have a lot of time, like I do the great courses thing, right? It's awesome. And I got to tell you, I feel like I've learned as much off of doing these great courses thing. Right. They're small mini lectures about 30 minutes long.
Oh, okay.
Right. But I just feel like the instructors probably strip off all the extraneous stuff, and it contains within it the knowledge that unless you are focused in that particular field of study, there's just way more stuff,
right,
than you need. It's still interesting, but you don't have to understand, precisely how carbon-14 dating works when they're doing archaeological digs. Or even get into the minutia of how they, linguistically figure out how ancient documents or scriptures are deciphered. Right. So we're going into this this Christmas time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much that we know now about biblical scriptures and biblical structure,
Right.
that we've from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
And but also just in the study of linguistics, they can figure out just by cross-referencing stuff, cross-referencing the use of grammar, let's say at the beginning of the century versus an end of a century, or if there was, or if there even was grammar, right? Because at one time there was no punctuation, right? So we had language,
Yeah.
but I don't think there were periods. So then they kind of over time developed periods and capitalizations and
Important things,
yeah.
like the perfect example of how to use a comma. Let's eat, comma, grandma, or let's eat, grandma.
Yeah, exactly.
Commas save lives.
But I don't know how they're working this stuff out. Like, I was watching a program on the ancient Sumerians.
Mm-hmm.
So the Sumerians were the early settlers of the Mesopotamia.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why that's important is because the land of Ur, that is where the ancient Hebrews were taken to when the Babylonians came in and conquered the Jewish people and destroyed the temple the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important because before the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant was kept in the temple. And so the only place where God resided was in the temple. Well, now the temple is gone and the Ark is gone. And so now what do these people do? Well, when they get to Babylon, they start writing down all this stuff. And it really kind of revolutionized not only the way that the Hebrews practiced their faith, but also the faith systems that were to emerge out of that. But one of the other things that was interesting about the Sumerian, and I have no idea how they worked all this out, but Sumerians used to count by going 1, 2, 3. You got 3 digits on your finger, and you have 5 fingers.
Oh yeah, each
right
segment.
or 4 fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I'm backwards. Where am I? 12. So the finger on your left hand counts as 12.
Okay.
12, 24, 36, 48. Because, right? Because each finger is worth 3.
Uh-huh.
Now, why that is important is because you do that 5 times and you have 60, which is a basis for 360 degrees in a circle.
Yeah.
Right?
Now we're getting into like sacred geometry and stuff like that. I was watching a video on that.
It's a trip, man. And so here we have this ancient people who are long gone. The Sumerians are long, long, long gone.
Yeah.
And yet they still are influencing the most basic aspects of modern life.
Yeah. So I was watching, there's a YouTube channel called After School, and school is spelled SKOOL.
Yeah.
And it's an artist who draws, a depiction of what a lecturer is saying. So there's a Bruce Lipton one that I watched that was really good about consciousness and creating heaven on earth. What if we are already in the heaven where we can create everything that we imagine? And how do we get to our, experiencing that? It was very CSL. And so he has a bunch of those. And one of them was sacred geometry. And I started watching it and seeing these sort of base numbers come up, whether it's in astronomy or in the measures of time or space or matter, or they all the same numbers keep popping up all over the place. And it was like, whoa, that's cool. And then I realized it was a 2-hour lecture and I moved on because my YouTube attention span is about 20 minutes max.
Well, Litton's an interesting guy because I actually heard him live.
Mm.
And his first book, The Biology of Belief, as a researcher, he discovered that there was a different vibration to a nerve. If you took readings, because a nerve is covered with a myelin sheath.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like a membrane.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that it operates in the sheath is different than the way that it operates without one. And so he made this pretty revolutionary discovery, and I think it had to do with MS patients.
Oh.
But I can't remember now.
Okay.
But they were able to influence the function of this nerve by whether or not that it was in this sheath or not. It's very interesting. In fact, now that I'm trying to explain it, I realize there's some part of me that's just kind of dancing.
Just kind of what?
Dancing. I'm trying to, I just remember being knocked out by it at the time.
Okay. I'm looking back at my YouTube history from my binge last night. So I actually started with Stephen Colbert's interview of James Corden, who hosts another late night show, because James Corden did a cover of Maybe I'm Amazed, Paul McCartney's song, mocking Trump, saying maybe I'm immune after he got COVID and came out of the hospital. And then during the story, James Corden said Paul McCartney called him to say that he had heard about that cover of, his song as Maybe I'm Immune because Willie Nelson texted Paul McCartney the link. And so
that is wild.
Stephen Colbert starts talking to him about, oh, but you've interacted with Paul McCartney before, and then talked about the carpool karaoke. So then I was watching that.
Yeah.
And it just made me so happy to see what an impact Paul McCartney has had. Just he goes into the smallest place in Liverpool,
right,
and people flock, and he just brings just joy wherever he is. And he goes to the house that he grew up in, and he's telling stories. It's now a museum, of course,
right.
But and then I went from there to Sapiens for some reason, and have like 2 or 3 Yuval Harari interviews. One is Hack Yourself and the Future of Humanity. Hack Yourself is from a channel called Impact Theory. And there's another one called Fearless Soul, which has a lot of these. It's like edited versions of these interviews. So I was watching Joe Dispenza on Fearless Soul. And then Super Soul Sunday came up. So I watched a little bit of Thich Nhat Hanh with Oprah on Super Soul Sunday. And then the last one was a Fearless Soul one about using a 5-second countdown to trick your brain into moving forward when you feel like you're in a place of indecision, to just not let your emotions rule you, but consciously take control and move forward. Her name's Mel Robbins.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are ways to use all the tools at our disposal to feed our brain, to build our knowledge, to inspire ourselves, to share those things with each other. And that would be the promise of social media and the ways that we are left to be able to connect during this pandemic, to do it safely and, reach out to friends who are not local and that we normally might not have time to squeeze into our schedules at this time of year, but now we kind of can. As long as we don't have to sit in front of the computer too long. My back is sore because I sat at the computer for too long, too many days in a row. And now it's like, no.
Yeah. Well, that's where it's nice to have an iPad.
Yeah, I got to get one of those.
Yeah.
That'll be on my Christmas list.
That's, I'm, so when it comes to technology, they have early adapters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm like the later than late adapter. But my brother Joe gave me an iPad.
Okay.
I thought, oh, wow. I mean, I knew it was a nice gift and I knew it was, valuable and so forth. And then I had another brother who gave me a Kindle Fire.
Uh-huh.
Another really nice gift.
Mm-hmm.
I could turn them on. I charged them and I turned them on, but I'm like,
that's as far as you got.
Yeah. Well, then I started dating Stephanie and she goes, oh, wow, you got these. Yeah, but I can't get them to work. And she goes, well, what's your Wi-Fi password? I'm like, what's Wi-Fi?
Yeah, Wi-Fi is a concept that I still haven't really been able to get my dad, who's 87, to really understand.
Well, someone who's a late adapter than me.
Yes.
But at least he's got a legitimate reason.
Yes, he does.
So,
so once you got the password, did you start using them or is it still Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's old now. Probably need to get a new one.
Right.
I can't watch HBO Max on it. I know that. Which I'm only hanging on to because of the remake of Dune.
Okay.
That'll be its own Thoughts on Talks.
All right.
Have you ever read Dune?
I have not. I remember watching the movie from like the 80s because Sting was in it.
Yeah.
That was my motivation. And Kyle MacLachlan was in it too, right? But I didn't really know who he was until Twin Peaks, which was
right. Now that was, well, nobody knew then.
Right.
But, and that movie did a fair job, but the book is a very complex book.
Okay. So how can you connect Dune to our topic from Sunday or anything?
Actually, it's very easy because Dune is a very metaphysical book.
Oh, cool.
And so in Dune, the preparation work for Dune comes in the years of mental preparation that the main character, Paul Atreides, does as a student to prepare him for the hardship of this new challenge that his family is going through. And it's a story with a messianic component to it. So, yeah, and there's just
a hero's journey.
Yeah, but there's some crazy components to it, right? So it's set like in the year 10,000, right? And Earth is just like this really vague myth.
Oh,
right. That yeah, but they take this stuff called the spice, which not only extends the life of humans, but also expands consciousness.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
that's something that I think most people would be into. I mean, theoretically, something that does the work for you of expanding consciousness.
Yeah. So you take some of the spice, and of course, it's more, and it makes galactic space travel possible.
That's handy.
Right. Because you have to have expanded consciousness in order to fold space like an accordion. So anyway, it's just very trippy.
Interesting. So I was
but that will be its own
whole own episode. Yeah. I've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, which is from the Marvel Cinematic Universe is what they're calling it now. So it's the continuation of all the Avengers movies and Stan Lee's legacy, really. So they've taken characters from the Avengers films, at least one of them, and they can
Stan Lee, not Stanley.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the episode that I was watching a couple of nights ago, they had an alien being, which could be from another dimension, but there were 3 monolithic stones that had been found and gathered from different parts of the world, different cultures, probably put here on Earth by aliens. One controlled space, one controlled time, and one controlled creation. And they had different markings on them. So the one there, it was a white one with 3 red stripes, was time, I think. And then there was a more rounded one with spirals on it, which was creation. And so the plot of that continued, but there was a lot of talk about the wonder of creation and being put in a place and time and letting things unfold. So there was a kind of a spiritual quality, at least that I was finding in the message.
Mm-hmm.
And after I finished watching that, I was thinking about the spiral of light and winter solstice and how I might celebrate it in a way that I could share with other people online somehow. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I did find some videos of other people doing a spiral of light ceremony, but none of them really translated that well on video. Probably there's a school with children, then they have the sweetest, best videoed one. But I thought, okay, maybe I should look up like ancient practices around the winter solstice. And so I found a video where a guy's explaining all of these sites that have, there's Stonehenge that everybody knows about, but then there's Newgrange in Ireland, right? And then there are a few places at just the top tip of Scotland. And then there's a place in France. And so they're built to capture the light, as you've talked about in some of your Sunday talks, on this longest night of the year, to capture the sunlight on that day, the solstice day. And then they showed in France, they showed a stone, and it was a rounded stone with spiral markings on it. And then they started showing all these spiral markings. And I was like, I was just watching that on this totally fantasy sci-fi show, but you can see that they were influenced by real ancient things and using it to create these new storylines. So that's part of what I love about sci-fi, is it brings to mind questions and puts us in a place that's not reality, so we can play with these ideas and questions and metaphysical concepts as well, social justice concepts as well, but in kind of a safe place of a fantasy world. But we have to make that connection that, oh, if this is possible there, then I can bring it into my real expression of life, my daily consciousness, to try to live that way.
Yeah.
So it's all connected. Absolutely. It's all consciousness.
It really is.
And really, as you said on Sunday, to bring it back again, the way to prepare our consciousness is to spend time in meditation and a practice of stilling the mind and creating space, so that we do have the ability to be open to new concepts, to have space to make choices. That's part of responding rather than reacting. When we react, there's no time, there's no space for choice. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah, because you're no longer choosing when you're reacting.
Right.
You're just caught up in things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't always work out. for the best.
No, it doesn't work out as positively as perhaps it might have had
Yeah,
you taken a beat.
yeah. That doesn't mean that we're not still, we don't become, superlative human beings who never are in error.
Right. Or
But
that challenges don't come upon us because we are now enlightened. We're still in this earth plane,
that's
in the
right.
human condition, but we just have a little bit more
Well,
a little
clarity.
more tools, yeah, and clarity and things to work with as we create our path and live our best life.
Now.
Right now, go. So, you have any good thoughts to close with? We're at the
Well,
50.
not really. It's just, I love this time of year, even though it's weird doing it during the COVID time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking forward to doing our Christmas service on Sunday, and we're going to do a Christmas Eve thing
Cool.
online. And I think I figured out a way to do a burning bowl also.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's just going to require that people are going to have to participate earlier than they usually do. So I
Okay.
can still do the flash paper and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking I can put people's names on it. And then that person will have already can then either write something down at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then symbolically we can, just release it through the burning bowl.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Could work.
Good work.
Yeah. Symbolic fire is still pretty good.
Yeah. So
That's what symbolism is for. So, for those of you watching, thank you for joining us. Check out yesterday's Sunday Talk on the CSLGH YouTube channel, which you can find by going to cslgh.org. You can go to cslgh.net for a limited time to check out the new website, which has links that takes you to the YouTube channel. And soon that's a test website. Right now, it'll be moved to the main website at cslgh.org in the new year. You can go back and watch our thoughts on talks with our guests. Last week we had both Salam, who's he's not even a guest anymore. He's like co-host now.
right.
He's one of us host people. And our special guest was Dr. Scott Bowman from Texas State University. And, check out all of our thoughts on talks and all of the offerings on our CSL Granada Hills YouTube channel. We've got meditations. There's some awesome music. There's talks. There's practitioner talks, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and you know what makes a great Christmas gift? Reverend Mike's book.
Oh, that's right. I have a book.
You can send it to the manly men in your life who seem to want to not talk about spirituality. Now here's a way that you can connect. Blue Collar Spirituality, Finding a God That Works by Michael McMorrow. Right there.
And
Under the sawdust.
And if you have Amazon Prime, it's only $10. And even if you do have to pay for shipping, I think it's under 13.
Very good. Reasonably priced gift that you
will
can
never find enlightenment at a cheaper price.
So, and if you use Amazon Smile, smile.amazon.com, and you can choose the Center for Spiritual Living in Granada Hills, and a portion of that purchase will go toward as a donation to the center. So yes. Do all your Christmas shopping like that.
Right.
And then you're, giving while you're giving.
Yes.
So much fun.
Yeah, which is important.
Smurfly. So cheers with my Hamburglar McDonald's mug that has been around since probably the 70s.
That's impressive that you still have one.
We just have the one.
Oh,
it's like a family heirloom now. It's a precious, precious thing that it's lasted.
You go on eBay and see how much it's worth.
No, we might go on eBay to find friends for him, but then it would ruin the magic that the Hamburglar has survived all these many decades.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Bye. We'll see you. Well, we have to say, oh no, we're going to be with Salam next week, right?
Next week is Christmas week. So we'll see if Salam wants to do it next week. Otherwise, yeah.
Next week's Christmas week?
Yeah, isn't that weird? So if we met with Salam, it would be the 23rd. So it depends on if he's available the 23rd or if you have so much going on Christmas week that you might want to put it off till the 30th.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
anyway, if we don't see you next week, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yay. Happy everything.
Yes.